Okay.
How are you doing, man?
It lives.
Can't believe it, man. So funny, man. Been listening to your music all my life, dude. Yeah. How's LA today? What you been up to?
Well, I'm only just really getting ready. It's like, it's 11 in the morning. I've been up since 7, but for me, I haven't quite woken up yet. Around midday is when I start rocking the world.
Yeah, so
But I've been doing interviews all morning, and I don't mind that at all. That's fine. I like talking.
Yeah,
no
man.
harm in talking.
No harm in it at all.
No, and I wish the government at the moment would realise that.
You mean starting up again?
Pardon?
You mean starting up again, the government?
Well, it's extremely foolish that it closed down, and it's all over political party lines and saving Boehner's face. And I think that face is so ugly it doesn't need saving.
Couldn't agree more.
And maybe that's why Boehner should sign up for Obamacare immediately.
Well, that's, you would
as a face-saving venture.
A face-saving venture, exactly. He's like he should be standing in line first outside with his check in his hand, right? Yeah.
Well, he's the kind of bloke that's, in a pile of oranges, he looks like the one that's been in the sun too much.
Yeah, probably have.
Overripe.
Yeah, he's definitely there's something like an overripe cadaver about him, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, does he go to the sun tanning clinic?
It's a rotten point, isn't it? Yeah.
I'd like to see his bikini line.
Where's he even? He's like from Nebraska, isn't he? Yeah.
Wow.
I think so. Isn't he? I don't know. He's from
you may well be right there, but he certainly hasn't gone back there lately.
But are you on tour now?
He's somewhere in the Mexican desert.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Do you want to know anything about me, who you're talking to? Because,
Not particularly. I think you'll tell me that as we go on. And
that's
all right,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
go
just
on.
briefly. Okay, my name's Will Richardson, and I write for this magazine in Poland called Mailman, which is a magazine that actually lets you write, what you want when you're doing interviews. So it's pretty good. And it's, I don't know how popular it is, but it's certainly, a good quality, if we can say that. And
is this internet?
No. It's a sort of premier men's magazine in Poland.
Oh, it's actually the written word on paper.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, with photographs.
You got my support. You got my support and attention immediately.
No, dude, if you could see me, I've got long gray hair and a horrible Allman Brothers beard. You'd hate me, but
fantastic.
I'm joking. I'm joking. Afterwards, seeing your...
Each to his own, I say, in this world.
Yeah, well, no, and I've heard you say that many times, but after watching your interviews, I decided I had to go out and dye my hair, purple or something. Yeah. So I didn't quite
Why?
I don't know.
Leave that up. Molly Cyrus has beaten you to it.
I know, and she's got a much better ass. Yeah. Unfortunately. I've been working on that for years. No improvement.
Yeah.
No improvement. But anyway, so I write for this magazine. I interview tons of people that you would, of course, hear of, but never a greater pleasure than talking to you. And what a great surprise. I mean, I didn't expect it. But I have to...
Oh, thank you.
No, really, I mean it. And as you say, honesty, important. And as much as you can control it.
Yeah.
And I want to bring you a hello from the God...
Let me tell you, by the way, that doesn't mean I'm going to reveal all my secrets.
No, please do. I'm a pretty good writer, so this is a good place to do it. So.
Yeah. Go on.
Now, I bring you greetings from the godfather of Polish reggae and punk.
Oh, my gosh.
His name is Robert Brylewski, and he's a living legend in Poland. He's the nicest motherfucker you will ever meet, I promise you.
It's funny, isn't it, how reggae has crept into every culture around the world.
Yeah.
In very intriguing ways, because, I mean, as I grew up with reggae, it was always wrapped around my neighbourhood, and so it's part of my bloodstream, really.
Right.
But when I hear it coming from odd places like Poland, I mean, my automatic attitude is, fucking thieves.
Well, I kind of thought that too. They have a great rap scene in Poland too, and
so long as the subject matter is something that affects Polish people, then that's fine. They found a backbeat to voice discontent.
That's it. Yeah, and you have to remember that.
So long as they're not pretending to be Rastafarian, because that'd be rather silly.
Yeah, and it's also a good way to get beat up, I think, by Rastafarians, isn't it? Yeah, it's not very respectful to do that. I'm a white Rasta sort of deal.
No, yeah. We leave that to the New Age Traveller Brigade.
Yes. What's a New Age Traveller? I hope it's not us.
They travel in buses all over Europe.
Oh, that.
Huge
oh, yeah.
Of them, it's a kind of a movement of claiming independence from society, and that's all well and fine. But when they shit in your field, it ain't so well and fine because you've got to clean it up.
Have you got a field?
They're everywhere. They're in America too.
Yeah.
Travellers. It's like an extension of the hippie movement.
Of course.
But it leads to some fun music in that, and some fun political stances too that I'm always open to.
For example, please elucidate.
Well, I think the Wall Street movement had a great deal of them involved in that.
They could have used
but
you
then
down there.
The Wall Street movement had everybody involved in it. It was, I think, the best political demonstration as of yet in modern times, because of its unity by disparaging groups.
Yeah, sure.
But they found one common consensus that Wall Street is to blame for an awful lot of things.
No, the Kennedy thing, I think probably Oswald did that, but the bankers definitely...
No, I don't. No, I'm not talking about that.
You're not talking about... No, I mean, the bankers that's one conspiracy that seems to be real, that's all I'm saying, yeah.
Well, there's always money at the bottom of it if it's America.
Yeah, well, yes.
Yeah. You just follow the dollar bill signs.
Yeah. I'm from Virginia, I understand, yeah.
Yes.
Williamsburg.
Once home of Virginian tobacco.
There you go. Are you still smoking?
Hello?
Good. Are you there?
Yep.
Yeah, are you still smoking? I mean, cigarettes?
Marlboro.
You still smoke? I had to quit, man. I quit like a year ago. Yeah. So I feel like I've quit heroin as well because it's supposed to be harder, so I quit heroin too. Yeah.
Good on you. Because there's a dead end, no occupation career in heroin.
That's not a good one. It hasn't ended up very well for anybody. Yeah.
No, and it never will, because it's the kind of drug that you use it really as an answer to your insecurities, without realizing that self-doubt is actually a wonderful part of your personality.
Uh-huh.
And anything that takes that, because that you must leave yourself open to question.
Oh, yeah.
Not only from yourself, which is obviously your biggest challenge, but for everybody else. And once you understand that, you find that those kind of chemicals are unimportant, irrelevant, dangerous, stupid, foolish, and expensive.
Very expensive and destructive to all your relationships. Oh, what about this cult of... I actually wrote this down. I did a sort of mind map, and you're hitting these points. Wonderful. I mean, did you see it psychically? Yeah. What about the... I'm kidding, man. I'm a very regular guy who loves rock and roll. But the 27 Club, like that sort of stuff. What is that all about? It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know about that.
People who die at the age of 27, Morrison and Cobain and Joplin.
But they called it the 27 Club.
Oh, dude, yeah, you don't know about that?
No.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think that's an oddity. It sounds like some kind of mathematical conclusion theory.
Yeah, it does.
That's roughly the age, though, in the music industry, when people have to decide whether they're going to exist for the rest of their lives and give up trying to pretend they're still 16, and accept what adulthood holds. And that's usually where the drug problems come in their hardest and fastest.
I never heard anybody say that. This is really interesting. Can you say a little bit more what you think that transition is?
It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of growing old and dilapidating. But I mean, I'm now 57. I went through a similar anxiety at 21. I thought that was going to be the end of my life, and I'd never be taken serious again because I'd just be another old fart.
So, you mean after this, the Pistols, or? No?
Yeah, but 21 was a real telling ground, and it was also the transition between Pistols into Peel. So
yes,
there were
right.
many emotional and mental and physical problems going on all at once.
What were some?
But I pulled through it, and I've got to say, amphetamine kind of helped at that time.
Oh, amphetamine is actually, if you get the right kind of stuff, not bad.
Yeah. Well, because it keeps. I'm one who's terrified of deep sleep or anything like that. Because when I was very young, at 7, I had meningitis, and the result of that was I was in a coma.
That affects your brain. That's water in the brain.
For 4 months.
Yeah.
And when I came out, I had no memory of nothing, of anything or anybody, and it took something like 4 years to get my complete memory back. And so anything like sleeping pills or anything like that knocks me out terrifies me.
So that's
because I'm constantly aware of not waking up, being a problem.
That's amazing, yeah. I mean, I understand that anxiety.
And some of my worst nightmares are actually where I know I'm sound asleep, but I want to be awake, and I'm fighting inside my own mind while deep asleep to wake myself up. It's an amazing battle of wills. But over the years, I've slowly come around to not find that challenging anymore, because I can do it. I can now do it. I can master that part of my psyche just by practice.
Yeah. So Are you one of these people who sleeps 3 or 4 or 5 hours a night or something? Or?
Yeah. That's about it.
And you don't get tired?
Yeah. Oh, terrible.
Because that makes me really tired.
And I don't care how old it makes me appear in the written word, but I like my afternoon nap.
No. That you and Churchill, and I knew I was going to get a comparison between you and Churchill eventually.
Aha. It's important to not try and strive through a 12-hour day without a break. I'm all for the Spanish and the Italian, in fact, the Mediterranean culture of a 3-hour lunch break, where you can eat, have an hour's sleep, have an hour just thinking independently of the work process, and then go back into it, feeling completely refreshed. I think that's a very healthy approach.
What's your work process? How do you write a song or whatever? Or I don't know if I can. I mean, I write songs too. But,
usually, just a bit like that comedian Robin Williams. You know the way he's like when where he's constantly, his brain's agitating itself and he's constantly throwing out ideas, and it all seems very unscripted, but ultimately very logical and rewarding to listen to him. Do a live show. Sure. Well, that's how it kind of is for me. It's ideas running constantly, and what I have to do is departmentalize them. If I have a process for one particular song, a thought process, I'll store that, and I'll come back to that later if I need to. But I'm doing that with about 10, 12, 50 things all running concurrently, as well as trying to, because let's face it, all songwriting really is from an emotional point of view.
Right.
At the same time, I have to understand the duality of my personality, where in order to run a business efficiently, I have to think logically.
Yes, right. Okay. Gotcha.
And so it's like the yin and the yang of being a human being. Some have put it male and female thought processes. Well, we have both of these things in our head at the same time.
Uh-huh.
And it's a matter of juggling the two. And of course, that's it's somewhat of a battle, but it's a bloody interesting one to be able to argue with yourself on a daily basis.
Well, how do you keep track of the different song ideas?
Yeah, I keep them all running in my head all the time.
They're in your
head, and I leave them open to influence, because nothing is written in stone until it's actually written on paper, and then put to music.
Okay, so these ideas that you don't...
For me, in songwriting, the word comes first, and then I'm in search of musical notes and tones that support that emotional rant.
Okay, so I may be wrong, I may be right, was an idea that expresses this duality you're talking about.
Yeah, that's questioning myself, and thereby I took the song into the bigger area
which
of
is
questioning
just
others.
a beautiful song. You know that. That's such a great song, yeah. Every time I hear that, I go, yep, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a collection of thoughts.
So that was a collection of, it's like it's almost a William Burroughs cut-up type thing. I mean, not William Burroughs, but the cut-up idea.
I understand what you mean.
Yeah,
but I'd also throw in there, because I don't ever like the content of Burroughs' things, but I like the way he formulated thoughts, and that you gather it's like the mind at work. That's how I like his writing. But I also like James Joyce's Ulysses, where that's just
well, that's
how he ever wrote it down as he was thinking it.
Who knows?
Because it's actually in a simulation of it's an artistic version of a thought process at work, and that kind of writing thrills me. Does it really? Yeah, I mean, you can get high on one can get high on writing. I have the same. It hits me too when I really dig something. I think it's the same for everybody, as you're saying. I hope it is. Yeah. But that's why people read. I've never heard you talk about what books you like, and I had that down too. And here we are talking about it. So what other books do you like besides of Ulysses, great Irish book, perhaps? Yeah, I don't view it particularly because he's Irish. It's the writing itself, and
he's everybody.
And usually for me, authors that come across the best, they contain wisdom, wit, irony, maybe satire occasionally, and also an in-depth analysis of the worst aspects of being a human being, which are jealousy and envy, hate and spite.
Absolutely.
It's to grasp the importance of all of these emotions. They are all relevant, and you can't say let's get rid of, say, for instance, envy, because that's I think it's important to go through that thought process to come out the other end as a healthier human being. In the same way, I think, and I've read a lot of serial killers talk about, the ones that put books out.
Yeah, right.
Or told their story, and I'm utterly fascinated how they made the decision to kill.
Yeah, me too.
It's an important process, I suppose, to analyse the potential in you to kill.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
To disregard another human being's right to live.
I think it goes on all the time, and people just don't talk about it.
I think so too. And if we were more open and honest with each other, we'd realise that there's a great deal of information in there about our driving forces that should be greater analysed and not hidden.
If we were more open about it, I agree.
Yeah, and less damage ultimately will come from that.
So, what other writers? Do any? I don't want to. Do any writers come to mind? In your mind besides?
Well, I suppose the sheer mockery of Oscar Wilde on the British class system.
Of course,
was absolutely just as a very young kid, regardless of his personal lifestyle. I found his attitudes about a class system to be really mind-opening. And
sexuality, too, a number of issues. Yeah, he was really on top of the game. Yeah, on top of the game, a real way ahead of his time. Of course, they killed him.
I think so. Yeah, he suffered for that, but he took it on the chin,
He did. He was no Nancy.
Quite literally, because he was a boxer.
Yeah, he was no Nancy boy, for sure. He was a tough guy. And a great writer.
But he didn't let that get in the way.
No, he didn't, no.
When people can go beyond judgment because the content of their work is so valid, that's when they open my eyes.
So you like the classics?
Now, what would those be? The Greek things?
No. I mean, the writers that have proved themselves, and they did a body of work. They're no longer living, for the most part, and which means Tom Clancy.
Oh, you mean by classics the dead?
Yeah, like Joyce and.
To my mind, the written word of the dead is as equally valid now as it was when they were alive.
Okay.
If it be of a certain quality.
Hope so. Yeah.
Right, but it always, if a book is written from the point of a prejudiced or jaundiced point of view, then that's of no interest to me. That's why I don't read political thoughts of one party or another, because I find them to be very self-serving.
Yes, of course they are. And I saw one piece with you, or there's so much great stuff on the internet with you talking. You were talking about Rand Paul got into your music at something. Was that true? Not Rand Paul, but Paul, who was running for president a few years ago.
Oh, this loony.
Yeah, his son is even crazier. Rand Paul. Sorry.
I have a strangeness with the libertarian movement.
That's what I wanted you to get to. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's where you were really heading.
Yeah, I kind of was. I wasn't sure, but I think, yeah.
Yeah, I disagree. I think we all have a responsibility to our fellow human beings. If they're less fortunate or further down in health than any one of the rest of us, I think we have a moral obligation. No, actually a value obligation, because morals are religious, so I'm sorry I dropped that word.
No, that's all right.
To look out for them, and I don't think any nation on this planet is worthy of anything at all if it doesn't look out for its most ill-affected or its lesser offs. I mean, just because a young child is from a poor background, that doesn't mean it doesn't deserve cancer treatment.
Yeah, you're saying that the Ayn Rand school of selfish for the sake of being selfish is nonsense.
It's ludicrous. It's this. I don't owe anything to anybody.
I couldn't agree more. It's no fun. If
that be your idea of a natural process, that's an incredibly stupid one, because that's taking us back into a condition of wild beasts.
Yeah, it's totally impractical too, and it's no fun.
Yeah, no, and ignoring the intellectual capabilities of what a human brain can achieve. And anyone who's worth his weight in any kind of intellectual process at all realizes that he has an obligation to his fellow human beings. And sometimes you could use a political process to push that obligation through, like proper funding for the sick and the dying, or the non-ill or the injured. Generally speaking, you should be kind towards others who are dead. Don't kick a man when he's down.
Absolutely not.
And don't view being wealthy as an act of God.
What is it? An act of?
Well, if just collecting money is your major and only driving force, you're ultimately lifeless, soulless, and pointless, and you will die a very lonely existence. Because nobody will care for you, because you've cared for nobody. What goes around comes around.
Yeah, the Ebenezer Scrooge syndrome. Yeah, as Dickens.
Well, this is the lesson. Again, Dickens taught many, many lessons, and he did it in a very
he hits on a lot of
point of view, and I think that's what made his writing so overwhelmingly interesting.
He hit on a lot of the themes that you're talking about.
Yep. And for me, that's part of my culture.
You were growing.
That's my inheritance, And to me, that's far more valuable, the knowledge in those words, than having wealthy parents and driving a Porsche to school.
That's just. Do you have a car? Do you drive a car?
No, I don't drive, but we drive in Nora. We have a Volvo because we're sensible.
Yeah, Nora's your wife of.
Yeah.
How long?
Yeah.
How long have you been?
30+ years now.
30+ years. How many kids you got?
None.
You didn't.
We have grandchildren.
Okay.
The stepdaughter died 2 years back from cancer.
Oh, my dear, I didn't know. Sorry. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just, all of this stuff goes into the songs,
Yeah, of course it does.
Having to deal with all of that. At the same time, just before that, my father died, and my brother contacted throat cancer. But luckily, he's now in remission from that.
Wow.
And
well,
again, let me tell you, if because my brother lives in Britain, if it wasn't for the National Health Service providing the medical care he needed, he would be dead.
Absolutely. Well, no. If
and so there you go. A national health process to me is vital.
Yeah. So your beef with what's going on now is the same as mine. It's, I mean, not to be, hey, let's. Well, it's just common sense. I spent a lot of time in Europe, and so I know what the system is. And in fact, I lived in England and went to university part of the time there. But and so you get, I have a national health insurance card, my friend. So, yeah, I still do. I mean,
a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it.
You're on your own in the workplace and all of that, and you've got to strive to achieve. When you're ill, I think that's an obvious thing that should be just taken care of, thank you, because otherwise what on earth are we having societies for?
Yeah, exactly. This is...
it's the bond. It's the bond between us that makes us stronger.
Yeah, I agree.
Otherwise this is, I don't know, the savageness.
Well, it's totally... You must be familiar with the physicist... Japanese-American physicist Mika, what's his name? Oh my God, now I can't remember.
Oh, is he the bloke with the greyish beard and the glasses?
No, he's the guy. No, he's the guy with the long. He's Japanese-American with the long white hair, but very perfectly parted. Yeah, and he's like all the time talking about everything. He's our leading theoretical physicist in the United States, but he's always on the BBC too. Okay. And he was talking about this. I'm saying this because of what we've been talking about and some other things I heard you say in interviews. And I just want to throw it out. He was talking about our transition. Are we going to make it from our zero level society to the next level, which is a one world society?
Yep.
And he was saying that it's always. Do you watch documentaries? I love them, but no.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, okay.
But they're becoming few and far between. And actually, the world of documentary is being polluted. I'm noticing this on American TV by fake documentaries are being put up. That and I mean, this is simplicity, but it was a perfect example. There was one about mermaids.
What?
And it was presented as if it was realistic, with alleged experts talking. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there ill-equipped to cope with what is and isn't true.
Yeah, what's going on with that? That's
it's murderous and damaging. And if you're going to draw lines, well, what is true from what isn't? I'm all for the romanticism of letting the mind expand and experimenting with possibilities, but declare that.
Yeah, you should declare.
Have a transparency in the message. Otherwise, these things begin to open the door for the preachy to creep in on us.
Or the nutters, because some
the
of
nutters.
The Jesse Ventura thing. Yeah, the preachers and the nutters were. Okay.
But the nutters that want science banned from schools because it contradicts religious philosophy or theology. This is an impossibility for me.
I take it you're not a believer in the man with the beard in the sky, then?
No.
But
no.
Are you?
No, I'm firmly attached to the laws of nature.
Yeah. And so what happens when you die?
And those laws are constantly changing, and isn't that fun? That's why the idea of a constitution written in stone as a regular human being, I'm telling you, that's not possible.
We have no idea what's going on. We have no idea. That's why I was...
we do. We know this basically. There's those that are fearful of a future and scared to think and open their minds, and those that are not.
Yeah, okay, well, we know about that. What I just mean is that...
And for me, on the last album, there's a song called One Drop. And I mean, the line is one drop in all of this ocean.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what we are. We're one drop. And that one drop can create terrible troubles or go with the flow. And the flow is the future.
Absolutely.
And in that, you've not got to be causing commotion. You're not going to be trying to fight it. Otherwise, you're like King Canute on the beach. Back waves. You know, you will surely drown.
Hey.
But that's where religion is now. It's King Canute on a throne telling the sea to recede.
Yes, yeah, you're right. No, I mean, okay, we're on the... What do you... I saw you on the Bill Maher show a couple of times, yeah? I mean, whatever's available. What do you think about your... do you like stand-up comics, generally? And do you...
Yes, I do. I do.
Yeah.
In
So
comedy, a lot of wisdom comes through.
Yeah, I think so.
And
I think
it's a very interesting part of the brain where it resolves problems in comedic ways. But by doing so, you're noticing the flaws in human thinking. It's a very, very important part of anyone's personality is to be open to comedy.
But haven't these guys become, you know, over the last 30 years, I mean, maybe even starting with, oh, they were great American, you know, some of the standbys like Bob Hope, who influenced so many people, Woody Allen. But Monty Python...
Well, I think the comedy line stops when it's in the hands of, say, Dennis Miller.
Okay, what's wrong with Dennis Miller?
Well, he went right-wing, and he went completely Republican, and by doing so, he cut off his
He lied
options.
himself, yeah, okay.
And that's not what any of us should do. We don't belong to a political party, not any one of us.
Well, let's say that you and I...
And if you allow a political movement to dictate to you your thought processes and by way of aligning to them, they take away your obligation to freedom of thinking. That's a serious negative.
Hey, John, this, you know, this is, you know, talking to you is, man, it's just like, it's cool, very easy, you know, it's nice. It's like I thought it might be, which is wonderful.
No, I'm open.
I know, man, but it's like, when did you... Were you always like that, or was it like? Yeah. I mean, we're all difficult when we're teenagers.
No, this is me.
Yeah.
This is me. Of course, I'm a lot better mentally than I was when I was 17.
Yeah, me
because
too.
I've learned more.
Yeah, sure.
But when I first started with the Pistols, I mean, I had to learn very quickly that these attack hamsters called TV hosts, for instance,
go for
had to be dealt with.
Yeah, go for it.
And so words became my weapons. And when I was met with aggression and hostility, I would reply in kind.
Well, but
there's a lot more to me going on than just that, and that's because the situation demanded that immediate response. I wasn't going to sit there and be told that like I'm a moron just because I come from the working class. It's unacceptable to me.
Well, of course, it's ridiculous, but you know, it's.
But that was my early learnings of, you know. And I don't think I've written anything wrong in anything I've ever done. I strive to get it right. For me, God Save the Queen, for instance, is a Sex Pistols song.
Talk about it, please.
For me, that was a great throwdown, a gauntlet, really. Like, there you go. Let's have a conversation on this. What have you got to offer?
Was that your... I mean, absolutely, because I lived in Britain. I could tell you stories. We don't have time now, because I want to talk to you. I want to hear what you have to say. But it would be for another time over a beer. But I was looking at the Tom Snyder interviews on YouTube. There's the one when you were very young, just after the Pistols, and you remember it well, I'm sure, with the mind that you have. And then the second interview is like, I don't know, it's not 20 years later, it's 16, 17 years later.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Can we use that as a paradigm?
Well, initially, Todd Snyder, again, there's another chap called Charlie Rose. So they were very negative.
Charlie Rose was negative to you?
Yeah, this is years back. This goes.
And the old school.
They were assuming the mantle of moral guardians, or presuming that I was this great demonic force that was going to challenge society and rock it to its roots and open the doors to all kinds of hedonism.
Well, no, listen, that's...
and that had to be corrected. But the thing with I've forgotten his name now.
Tom Snyder.
Yeah, Tom Snyder was years later. He came back and he started having conversations with me about misunderstandings that went on between us, and asked me to come back on the show and correct the balance, and that's what I did.
No, he was really
and
cool
formed a really good friendship with him, and then of course a while later he died. But
poor fellow, he was a great journalist.
It was very interesting. He sent me everything he ever did on DVD, and
oh, he did.
And advice
friends,
on
right?
books to read, and so we became very, good friends, I'd say.
No, he was a cool guy. He was a very good journalist. I mean, old school. They don't exist.
Well, he opened my mind to other possibilities. We both demonized each other, and so that was a very good, positive step forward.
What do you? Can we talk about music a little bit?
That'd help.
All right. No, I love all this other stuff because this is what makes what I do different, because I'd like to talk to you about things that interest you. But music, because it's out there now, I don't want you to define it or anything, but can we talk about Lady Gaga and why you think she's great?
I don't think she's so great anymore. She's beginning to repeat herself.
Okay, what was the initial thing you liked?
What was great was I was watching her website, and her communication between her and her audiences was very touching. She seemed to care for the disenfranchised, and I had a great attraction to that kind of behaviour.
That spoke to you. That goes back to your...
Yeah, that was directly heartwarming. I don't have the financial situation to have that possibility. But it was good to see that was being done there, and it meant a lot to young kids, that feel alienated for being individual, and that was where I liked what she did. I would never say that the music.
You like the music? The music's horrible, isn't it? Please.
It's somebody else's horrible redone.
I know, because now you got this view of music. Yeah, you're right, but. And it's for those people who like it, and that's the way it works.
That's fine, and I make no bones that could never be a problem, because I don't see any hatred or fascism taught in it.
No, there isn't, and but I'm sure you're aware and must have seen some of her earlier work when she was a blues singer in New York, which is really good stuff. When she's playing the piano in the clubs and singing.
When she's classically trained, so the possibilities are endless, but she's decided through frivolity.
Yeah, and that's what I don't like, I think.
And I don't see any really deep, great message in that, because she's a lot smarter than that.
Yeah, that's my problem with her, because I didn't say that I'm a songwriter and musician, and I actually work with this guy I told you about, the godfather of punk and reggae in Poland. He's in my band, and that plays every now and then. But I don't feel too bad, because I was talking to somebody recently who used to photograph a lot of jazz greats back in the day, who's a very famous photographer called Richard Horowitz. I was interviewing him. And, I mean, he's the guy that you guys would like each other. And he said, man, I was in clubs. It was Ella Fitzgerald singing in the early, 1961, and there's like 10 people.
Yeah.
You understand? I had no idea.
Yeah,
I can't
sometimes
believe it.
You can't judge a thing called popularity. I mean, there are outfits that can fill arenas.
Yeah, sure.
I'd say One Direction. I mean, not.
But that's horrible. Please, I'm not going with Pete Townsend.
But the point being that's say 20,000 people that haven't learned anything from that, because all they've gone to see is an act.
Right.
All right?
It's cabaret.
There could be 10 people who could go and see an unknown jazz musician, but those 10 people will be taking something from it.
Okay.
And that will go on to being the advancement of the human race. And that's how I judge popularity. I'd rather have those 10 than the 20,000.
And how did you come to that? I mean, it sounds right. How did you come to that conclusion, John?
Because I can't count.
You were like, and you need glasses. Like, I think there's a lot more people out there.
Yes.
And if they all have split personalities,
I'll tell you, the amount of times I've run on stage going, "Hi, everybody," and fallen straight into a pit.
Really? There's like, no, come on.
It's very difficult for me. I cannot see the end of the stage. I usually bring out a roll of white tape and mark it out before I go on, because
is that right?
I'll never know. I'll never know.
Dude, really? Because
that's why I limit the lighting we use too, because it just blinds me and
well, this is lead singer's
because I'm prone to epileptic fits if the light, like flashing strobe lights. So
are you really?
I have to curtail all that. I have to keep reds out of it because they can do weird things to my head too. This all goes back to meningitis and all of that.
Oh, you have
it. So,
yeah.
You know, so me, the perfect stage lighting is, what's available, turn it on, light them colours, that'll do.
What do you think about Jim Morrison?
Because anybody who comes to a live performance to check out the lighting and the dancers should just stay in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of my point. Okay, thanks for making it more succinctly. Jim Morrison was also virtually blind, apparently. A lot of these singers. So, does it make it easier when you can't see the audience?
No, it's horrible.
It's horrible. Okay.
Yeah, awful. I mean, for me. And it's an odd thing to say because my career depends on my ears, being able to hear. But I would much rather give up my ears than my eyesight. My eyesight is so overwhelmingly important to me, and yet it's the one thing through excessive reading in dark rooms that's I've damaged the most.
Well, Beethoven...
It would be a terrible loss to lose eyesight. I don't know how I would cope with that.
Well, Beethoven heard with his eyes, didn't he?
Pardon?
Beethoven heard with his eyes.
Yeah, I think the vibration.
Yeah, and we had that, but he also knew where everything was, and he could remember... and
I'm glad you raised that, because it's always been in the back of my mind, and it's not a flippant statement I made there about eyes or ears. But no human being should be given a choice like that. So,
that's horrible. Horrible. I mean, but we make choices that we don't make choices.
Oddly enough, what I do is with music is we try to paint pictures through tone and written words.
Well, you're creating an emotion that creates a picture in the mind of the listener.
And in particular, with Pill, if you close your eyes and you listen to our stuff, you let your mind flow into it. You'll come up with all kinds of amazing things.
No, it's great stuff. I love it. And
we put so much in there, so many unobvious inflections. That's why the idea of music being bounced down to an internet load is appalling.
It is appalling.
You miss so much. It's the whole point of it.
Yes, you do. I mean, and people ask, sometimes. I mean, I was asked this question about the difference between vinyl and somebody was interviewing me, and the difference between vinyl and CDs, and I said, well, it's the excitement of going to the shop, isn't it, when you're a kid?
Yeah, well, it's the technology of a stylus scratching through a plastic line is appallingly old-fashioned, but until you come up with something that beats that, and I've consistently been saying this to record labels for decades, why you keep offering alternatives that are actually a downgrading of quality?
Right, and
even with CD manufacture, the major labels give you as least information as possible because it's cheaper for them to do that.
Exactly.
And here I am. Here we are. We're struggling to keep our label running. And we've offered nothing but the highest quality vinyl and CD download and internet download, the highest levels we can achieve. And that runs us at somewhat of a loss. It cuts into anything you could call profits. And those profits we rely on to be able to get into a recording situation.
Yeah, and
But quality comes before quantity to me.
That's enough. I'm not going to ask you about record companies. It's boring. That's more interesting what you just said than anything I've heard. You know, what's this beef with the Beatles? You're not the only one. One of my best friends is a rockabilly guy. He hates them. But
it's an odd one. I suppose it's all based really. Well, my mum and dad loved them, and they played them constantly when I was young. You know, the pop.
Oh, it's one of those deals.
She loves you, yeah. and so, and you know, you're young and you want to go to sleep, and that stuff's on. It's like plain arse irritating.
Well, would you have been happier with Al Hurt or something? You know, or Louis Armstrong?
In a weird way, it contaminated my thinking, but then. I look at the Beatles, and there's songs I absolutely love.
Well, okay. For example...
I absolutely love.
Strawberry Fields, A Day in the Life. Come on. Yeah. These are great.
Yeah, you know,
Walrus.
Maybe You Can Ride My Car is hysterical, and because it's a story I can picture.
Yeah, of course. And I love... Everybody's got something to hide except for me and my monkey. I love that one. I mean, what kind of lyric is that? I mean, that's entirely psychedelic.
It's deeply fascinating, is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously it's because they knew better. They weren't just throwing words in for the rhyme. But overall, it was something about shifting gears again from pop so conveniently into being very convenient as it happens, and very much based on the radio availability for pop music at that time. That DJs had to go offshore, things like Radio Luxembourg and all of that. They were all like rebel DJs, and so Sgt. Pepper's came at the right time for them to push that.
For sure.
As an alternative to government-controlled radio.
Like Radio Caroline or Luxembourg or whatever it was.
Yeah, because, you know, regular radio was playing nothing but classical music. And I still remember that as a very, very young kid.
Yeah. Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember some of that stuff. I don't remember that because it wasn't in England, but I remember some of the music, yeah.
So I think that's the backbeat. I think that's the backbeat to the Beatles' popularity.
What about the Stones? Is that too far removed from the blues?
No. There are things on Exile on Main Street I love, and Sympathy for the Devil. I like many of their songs.
Give Me Shelter.
Yeah, but I don't like the overall similarity of the body of work. It doesn't show too much care.
And the narcissism of Mick Jagger.
Research into human nature.
The narcissism of Mick Jagger.
It all seems to be very selfish.
John, you know, the keyboard player for the Deep Purple, who died, John.
Yeah.
I interviewed him. I had the great chance to talk to him about a year before he died. And what a wonderful guy, and great musician, of course. And he was saying that you never knew which Mick you were going to run into, but he loved Keith. Which I thought was just so fucking funny that John Lord would say that to me, man. Isn't that good?
I know, and poor old Keith. And poor old Keith's become Dracula, really, with his blood transfusions every year.
Is he really doing that? Come on.
If those rumours are to be believed, then
it's Richard Gere and the Gerbils. It's Richard Gere and the Gerbils.
He's never put an end to it. I mean, it's a deeply fascinating lifestyle.
He's not doing Gerbils too. Come on. Yeah. Come on. These are urban legends.
That's Richard Gere. Who, by the way, I met Richard Gere. I really liked him. I thought that was a good, solid human being.
He's a really fine actor. Yeah. He's got he's doing a lot of stuff with
I think a lot of the rumours that wrapped around Richard Gere was he was much better than Hollywood, and Hollywood resented him.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's a classy guy. Yeah.
So they had to drag him down, and that's what they do. There's many actors that have suffered that.
Hey, John, can I ask you a question? This might be a little difficult to answer, so I'm going to ask it to you. Anyway, what's it like being someone that people call a legend? You know?
Annoying that kind of
what does it mean?
attitude is brought onto me. I only know my own life, and I mean, I know. You know, I mean, intimately know my own existence, and I don't know any other way outside of what it is I am. But when people infer things like legend or icon, it sends a shiver up my back, because I'm aware that that's opening me up to an area that has to be curtailed, because that can lead to terrible egotistical problems.
Yeah, Jesus complex or something.
And I'd rather be riddled in self-doubt than self-glorification.
Yeah, because that's where the art lies. And that's why you're still producing good stuff, right?
Well, that's where reality is.
Yeah, that's why you're producing good stuff. John, I would love to see you do a stand-up show, man.
I think I could do it in a heartbeat.
I'm not even joking, man. You got to catch a comedian called Bill Burr. Yeah? You know who he is?
Yes, I do.
Man, you guys should meet. You love each other. I mean,
the trouble, we talked about comedians earlier. The trouble with a lot of them, when I've run into them, and they become somewhat confrontational, is I quickly learn that they're scripted, and then I resent that.
Are they really? I mean, not all.
Yeah, a lot of comedians, they rely on pre-rehearsed jokes or one-liners, and they're constantly trying to shift you towards their agenda.
That's the TV stuff.
And I'm very, very good at handling that in any live TV situation.
No, I saw you give Bill Maher.
Because with me, I'm very capable of spur-of-the-moment thinking.
No, I noticed that. I mean, you get Bill Maher. I remember he goes, "Don't make me destroy you," and I was like, "Dude, shut up! This is
what an arsehole.
Johnny Rotten, man. He's gonna fucking thumb you in the nose, you little midget. Shut up! Shut up, you midget."
No. He would never get violence out of me, but
but what I didn't mean like you're gonna hit him. I just meant like you're gonna.
No. What that did
take
for
the
me
piss out of him.
was show me that this man isn't worthy of respect.
Well, it was just
to be
weird
behaving in that way.
It's like, dude, it's like he thinks he's an.
And there was a famous statement he made a few years back, which I thought was fantastic at the time. It was about the government we were calling terrorists cowards, and yes, I agree with that. But he said the real cowardice is to fire a missile from 1,000 miles away. That's an act of cowardice too, and yes, it is. But he tried to rescind on that.
Yeah, but you know what Howard Stern called that? Listen, man, I follow this stuff. I'm a nerd about knowledge, and it's particularly good pop culture knowledge. Before I even knew, man, that I was going to talk to you, I had watched at least as much stuff about you as Charles Manson. I'll tell you. That's a joke. Yeah, that was a joke. No, but I had seen a lot of these interviews with you because it's interesting stuff, man. When you're appearing, and I saw a few of them, and then I followed them. Howard Stern, though, you never appeared on his show, but I don't think. Did you?
No, never.
No, well, he should invite you on. That's something that...
I don't think I care for it, really, at this point in my life. I've met him twice in the corridors of various organisations, and both times he's kind of like... looked away, and I thought,
well, that's fucking stupid, because he wishes he was a rock and roller.
It's too ridiculous for me, and I wouldn't mind a real good, fun, open conversation with anybody, but I draw the line with this "how big is your wife tits" approach that he has.
No, this is I'm not surprised somebody doesn't get out of the chair and smack him sometimes, but or at least go.
Well,
Howard.
some have. I know a member of KISS that threatened to do that.
The leader. The leader man of KISS?
The big one that loves to make money.
Oh, that fella. Yeah, I know who he is. I don't think I'd argue with him. He's got arms like, huge arms. And he looks like, he's pretty spry. I mean,
Yeah, there's a point where you don't step into people's personal lives and their family members. You're not got to be there.
No,
You know,
I think
whatever it is,
wrong.
I do, and because I'm a public figure, of course, I put my head in the chopping block, and just hoping nobody drops the guillotine or the axe. But that doesn't mean that my family, my members,
Dude, you're beloved.
or
You're
anybody
beloved.
personally attached to me has to be open to public ridicule. That's where I will not allow that to happen.
No, you can't let that happen. That's ridiculous. And I agree that Stern does that. He goes too far with some of that stuff. But anyway, I didn't want to go too far into that, just to mention that you hadn't been on there. But interesting comment about him, which I think is spot on, I have to say. Which stand-ups do you really like? And when am I... Listen, I interviewed Mike Tyson. He does a one-man show. When are you going to do yours? With music. That's the way to go. It is.
I'm much more interested in public image. That's
Well, that's what I mean.
me.
Public
That's the centre of my universe, and
with public image.
and I mean, I've put out a solo album, and there it is, and there it stands. But I like working with people, and I like that sharing experience very, very much.
But you have so many good stories to tell, and you're funny.
It's an astounding achievement to be able to trust 3 other people on the stage with you, and to know that your trust won't go. It won't be thrown by the way. That's after all these years in making music. That's now where public image is.
What's the definition of that?
We respect each other.
Yeah, you respect
Friendship.
It's friendship and respect, and then everything works out.
Yeah.
Is that because as you get older, you're like it's more about the music?
It may have something to do with that. I hope it does, because otherwise experience has no value. And to me, experience is the most valuable.
Yeah, because
you must be experienced enough to always be able to put yourself into areas of research or experience that are utterly unknown to you.
John,
it's very much like how I learned to swim when I was very young.
Go ahead.
I dived in at the deep end, and then it was sink or swim.
Did you swim?
I swam. I believed the teacher when he said you'll float.
Damn, John, I did the same thing, but I sank for a while. But they had to pull me out. But I jumped in again. The next time I was okay. But I just I sank the first time.
I decided not to panic.
That's the difference between us,
this
mate.
could kill me, but I'm not going to panic. And lo and behold, I found myself floating. Fantastic achievement.
Yeah, it is. It's an amazing feeling. Yeah, when you can make that happen.
Yeah. As for jumping out of aeroplanes or with a parachute or bungee jumping, I don't know about that, and I don't know if I need to prove anything to myself in those 2 areas. Because many people over the years have called me something of a daredevil, but I'm not.
In what way are you? I think
I'm not a daredevil at all, but I will do what's necessary if it has a rewarding conclusion.
John, do you mind if I say that you were doing some of the best intellectual work in the late 70s in England?
Nobody else was.
Nobody was thinking for shit.
No.
With Callaghan running around and another Healy with his eyebrows.
Yeah.
There was nothing going on, man, until that broad took over. Yeah.
No, man, I've got to tell you, a lot of the, what would you like to call them, musicians of the time have held me in nothing but bitter contempt ever since. There was no unity in punk, unfortunately. They weren't listening to me.
What did you think?
They were listening, but they were resenting because they couldn't understand what it was I was truly saying, because it meant they would have to compromise their negative thinking.
But it was also
or stop being selfish, or open their mind to newer possibilities. And that's too much of a challenge for the greedy and the immature.
John, you walked the line. I agree with that, but you walked the line.
Oh, I walked the walk and talked the talk.
And you walked the line between irony. I mean, it was true irony, really, in what you were doing. There was a great deal of humor, and people missed that.
Yeah, they did.
You guys, punk was really a stand-up kind of deal. That's why I keep coming back to that. The more I look at it, it was, and that's why, in some sense, stand-up has taken over from a lot of music, because back then, lots of those groups. You know who they are. We have to mention them all. One of my favorites, Joy Division, but we won't go into that.
Yeah.
I just love them. I think they're great. I think your group and their group and the New Order group are really the leaders, and then later the Cult that came out of that for really doing great music. But there are others, but I'm not as big a fan. I think those are the best.
Those are all things in my record collection. There's no doubts about that.
My God, Ian Curtis, and you mentioned that you had this problem with the epilepsy, and I think, what a sad way to, poor fellow, if he could just had somebody, a friend.
I did an internet program once on Iada, and I did a little section on it. I used to talk to politicians and philosophers.
When was that?
A weekly basis on the internet.
On the internet. Right. What was it called?
It was on a network called IADA. It was thrilling for me because, these blokes were really, demanding that I study what I'm talking about. But to me, study is a privilege, and I love it. But it's great and all that. But I used to have a thing called stupid rock deaths,
Right.
Or take a half an hour aside and just go through why did that end in death. And again, that's, personally speaking, I've known quite a few people that have killed themselves through all manner of chemicals or alcohol or whatever, or suicidal tendencies. And,
sure.
And all respect to the band.
Well,
all of this, but if you like a theme that's consistently here, and it's running from the
Pistols.
Did you know each other? Wait, a theme that's running from the Pistols. It'll always be there. It's my sense of values. But there was a line in a song called Problems. You've got a problem, and the problem is you.
Right.
And that's what I'm continuously reminding people of. It's the fault is inside their own thinking processes.
Yes, I totally agree. And you know who said that to me was Vladimir Klitschko, the world champion boxer, said exactly the same thing to me 2 years ago, almost to the day. Same
there you go.
thing. He said, your own worst enemy is yourself. Look at yourself first. He says, that's what I have to battle with. Because I asked him what his biggest challenge was.
Fantastic.
And this is a real mensch, this guy, real guy. Come out with that one. So, but
that's very, very open of him. I respect him a hell of a lot, because that's an actual truth, and it's very few of us as a species that can be so open.
No, it's incredible. This guy is like, I was like, whoa.
But I have no doubt he found telling you that very rewarding. That's the gift of this.
Well, it was rewarding to me. Yeah.
Yep.
To hear
and for him himself, because you're telling yourself something about yourself, and
Isn't that what you're doing in an interview when you talk to somebody,
constantly.
John? Is that
Constantly.
what you're doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Aren't you really? Yes. Aren't you able? Because I mean, in some sense, people complain, but I think once as you get older, it's like, wow, I have this opportunity to talk to somebody. I'm suggesting you might feel this way, that I have this opportunity to talk to somebody and to see myself through them and learn something. As Robert Burns said, to see yourself as others see you.
Yes. You can't get lost in your own egotism.
Yeah.
What you see in the mirror is not a true reflection of your actual self.
Of course.
And oddly enough, in a realistic approach or explanation,
it's the opposite. That's what you mean. Yeah.
Is Madame Tussauds,
right,
years back, did a waxworks of me.
Yeah.
And this is just on a physical level, and we're talking mental here, but it's the same application and the same results. I was shocked walking around this wax identikit of me. It really, it was overwhelming.
Was it like you?
That how I seen myself and how I imagined my physique and my look and my stance and what I looked like from every angle was nothing at all like I perceived myself. Very surprising. But very educational and very rewarding. And there you go.
Well,
Johnny Rotten's in Rock Circus at Piccadilly.
I know. I've been there a long time ago. But a few years
and by the way, when they made that waxworks of me, they didn't have the modern technology of photographing you, from a 360 circle of cameras.
Right.
In them days, you'd be I was standing on a very slow revolving platform, and I'd stand like that for 8 hours.
You kidding me? How do you do that?
With great willpower.
That's some huge.
But I was absolutely determined to do it.
I think I'd do it too if somebody wanted to do a statue to me. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's intriguing. You get to look at yourself after.
But scary.
And then basically, you're standing there in your underpants.
I hope there were
people
boxers
walking in and out, and you feel very, very exposed, and so it's a very telling thing about how you can handle that. You have to overcome an enormous amount of shyness, and you would think, being a public figure that I am, that I wouldn't be shy. I am.
Now, Gary Cooper, who's like probably one of the most famous people of films we can talk about, he was always very shy, man. But he could turn it on. It's not so unusual. That's a creative outlet, isn't it? It's not as
but it means he understands himself. He understood himself, and therefore he could do that.
Well, no, people are looking at you and they're saying, he's just very brash or whatever, but they don't understand that he might not be like that at all, And
no, I'm brash when it requires it.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, I like three-tier chess.
What? You like what?
If I'm going to play chess, it's going to be multi-level.
Oh my God! Yes, of course. That's like keeping all the songs in your head. Yeah, which is, I find amazing because I have to commit them to. I would have to commit an idea of anything.
I visually picture where I'm filing them. I mean, I quite literally imagining filing cabinets, libraries, shelves, corridors, doors, staircases.
Yeah.
I put myself in a building to do all of that. And I from a very young age, I've always liked that.
So you put them in a cupboard, each one in its own cupboard?
Yeah. Well, what's rubbish goes in a rubbish bin. But I can always go back and look back in because I don't throw anything out.
Jesus Christ, that's how your mind works?
Yeah.
That's amazing. You should write longer stuff, too, if you can do that.
I probably will at some point.
You going to write a novel or a non-fiction?
I found that when I combine the written word with music, that I get closer to the truth of what human emotions are.
Yeah.
Now,
eventually,
I'll reach the stage where I'll be able to do that completely with words, I think. But as of yet, I don't know the correct juxtaposition of words to fully and accurately portray any emotion. I can give you a rough guideline, but for me, it's an ongoing experience of learning.
Who were the songwriters that you learned from when you were 17, 16 years old, trying to write a song?
Well, everything from the irrational nonsense of Captain Beefheart, which utterly thrilled me.
Are you kidding? He's a great genius.
To John Lennon's Imagine album, Working Class Hero, the single.
Is something
it
to
was
be.
Cold Turkey, that single. I remember that.
It's got me on the run.
That was banned, just like one of my Sex Pistol records. When he released Cold Turkey in England, that was banned from being number one.
That was like God Save the Queen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I right? Yeah, God Save the Queen.
Yeah. For twice in the history of the British chart system, there was no number one that week.
Those are the
Isn't
two.
that great?
That's amazing. And you're right up there with John Lennon. At the same time, you're going, I hate those fucking Beatles. No. I love that. But it's like, it's a kind of a rivalry. I read or didn't hear Michael Stipe.
Can I just tell you briefly? I wouldn't bother to comment on it if I had any disregard completely for them.
Well, I know you don't. That's why it's an interest. I understand that you must because we all do in some way. But I was interested to go further than these glib comments that one throws off, just to get a reaction.
Yeah, well, they're not so glib. It's in an interview status. It's very difficult to expand on these thoughts because the questioner will then jump to something else without fully grasping what it is you're saying at that point. And then a week later, when that article is publicised, you know, due to bad editing or whatever, it's perceived as me just ranting again, and it's not like that at all.
There he goes again. Now,
yeah. Well, hello, you know. Yes, there I do go again, and there's more around that to come if you give me the opportunity.
Hope so. You must never stop. You must never, ever stop. You were one of my favorite people, besides Christopher Hitchens, who we no longer...
I will never... Oh, yes. Oh, I
Did
love
you love
that.
him?
What was about an empty vessel beats the loudest? He used that thing.
Yeah.
So oh, God, what was it called? The drum beats... it was an excellent novel on Washington politics.
Drum Beats on the Potomac, I think, yeah.
It was beautiful. It was just lovely. He grasped it.
No,
and it's still the same way today, because nobody was prepared to learn from this fella.
He's
a
great man, in my opinion. Yeah. As are you, sir.
Oh, stop that.
No, but
I've got to go now.
Yeah,
I've got to go and put up a letterbox.
I know you do. Do you have an email address or?
No, I don't do any of that.
You don't do any of that? All right.
No, I keep as far away from that as I can.
Not a Skype address or anything like that?
No, I won't do it. I will not do it.
All right, mate. That's cool. When are you going to be in Poland in a concert, though? Right?
Oh yeah.
Coming to.
That's where you meet me. For me, life's about one-on-one.
All right. I'm bringing my mate bringing my mate Robert Brylewski.
All right.
The punk and reggae guy. He's the coolest guy. He's a huge fan of yours. And I can say there probably wouldn't be the punk. The other guy's dead, you had a big influence on, but he just died not from drugs or anything, just a bad heart. And Robert said, he'd love to come down, and the photographer's going to take pictures of you, John, for this story, because it always goes with pictures. My stories, okay?
Good.
Yeah, with
not
photos.
A problem.
Yeah, they go.
I got over being shy in front of a camera a long time ago.
Well, yes, I'm aware of that.
and let me tell you, I mean, my mother and father are dead, but this is the truth. When I was younger, and I mean, right up to joining the Sex Pistols, I just didn't like my photo taken, ever.
Wow.
And I would do everything and anything to get out of such situations. That's why when I look back at my childhood, it's not usually with photographs.
Wow, it's crazy, isn't it? Well,
it is, and it's very silly of me, but whatever insecurities I was feeling, the Sex Pistols definitely helped me get over that.
I think it's a good place to let you go, sir. I would love to talk to you. I could talk to you forever. But thank you very much for your kindness. I really enjoyed the conversation. The readers are going to love this in Poland and other places I sell it. Okay.
All right. Well, may the road rise and your enemies always be behind you. And for your reggae, mate, may it scutter, flutter, butter, and shatter.
We will see you in Poland, my friend.
Peace.
All the best. Be well. Say hello to Nora. Ciao.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah.